and welcome to episode 6. This is the long game. Hello, my name is Tony. You know me as Mr. Marvelite everywhere, but most importantly, through It's FanBox. And if you have not already, go check out itsfanbox.com as well as youtube.com/It's FanBox. And with me tonight, or today, whatever it is, I'm sick, if you haven't figured that out yet, is David. David, go ahead and tell us where we can find you.
I am Xanatos1138 on all socials, mostly TikTok at the moment.
Mm-hmm. And Niko will probably not be with us today because of the fact that BlurredCon is going on, and that is completely understandable. Whether Will Wilkins and Johnny ever show up is a mystery, and that's okay, because this will make David have to talk more. We actually just said that because when I said, "Are you okay with just starting without them?" and he's like, "I'm actually going to have to talk," so. But yes, check us out. Itsfanbox.com. Also, if you haven't, you'll want to go check out our newest podcast we just started for Daredevil Born Again, which just aired for the first time last night. We had a really good panel of guests on to talk about Daredevil and a lot of the emotional damage that came with that. Those are also all found on podcast form anywhere you get your podcasts. It went live this morning. And then on top of that, this show is found on podcast. So if you want to take us with you, and when we show pictures, we don't explain them, you'd have no idea what we're talking about, because we don't do podcasts the way podcasts should podcast, but that's okay. But let's go ahead and just talk about the episode. If we do a short show, that's perfectly fine. We'll know that's because Will's not with us. And so let's get started. The long game. It's our episode 6, but really it's episode 7. And we know that this has the doctor, Rose, and the ever punchable Adam with us. David, what were your thoughts?
When I was rewatching this episode, I did realize, and I said this in the chat, that it is my least favorite episode of the season. I liked that Simon Pegg's in it. He was an interesting character, at least. Adam was definitely annoying, and then watching, I think even in my first viewing, when I watched Rose hand him the TARDIS key and let him keep the cell phone, I said, "Oh, he's gonna do something dumb." And Rose is going to let him because she's so trusting. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was also the second time I've seen that actress that wanted to get up to floor 500. I first saw her in Black Lightning, mm-hmm. and she was a much more interesting character in this. Let's just say that.
Yeah, which, even though, like we were saying before, she's still pretty whiny. Mm-hmm. Like, my biggest thing for her is when she finds out what's happening to everybody that's on floor 500, she could have just been thankful, but she's like, "You should have promoted me a long time ago." And it's like, really you're that shallow, but okay, fine, that's perfectly fine. But I will say, Simon Pegg, I feel like I loved having him in Doctor Who. I would have loved for him to have had a better character to be in it. I feel like, with the way I know Simon Pegg is, like, he gave the character a little bit of flesh to it, but it wasn't like in my mind, a good Simon Pegg performance. So it was kind of like, the first time I watched it, I completely missed it was him in the first mm-hmm. place. And then I went back and I'm like, "Oh wait, that is Simon Pegg. Why did he take this job? Like, why?"
I think his best nerdy acting job was probably as Scotty in Star Trek. Because even as Unkar Plutt in Star Wars, he was in that giant suit the whole time, and you couldn't even tell it was him because he's got the voice. And yeah, I mean, it was interesting to just kind of like Leo point, "Oh, that's Simon Pegg. Cool." And that's it. That's all you ever see of him. He's gone.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because I think, like, looking back at the Star Trek reboot, I think his performance as Scotty is one of my favorites. I loved Chris Pine as Kirk, because I always felt like Kirk had a level of douchery that I wasn't really interested in. Mm-hmm. And I liked Spock no matter what. And I think Leonard Nimoy was a better Spock in his older age than he was in his younger age. And I just especially in these series, seeing him, the newer reboots. And I wasn't angry at Zachary Quinto, but I loved Simon Pegg as Spock, or mm-hmm. as Scotty. And so, yeah, I completely get that. And I think that's probably why I'm gauging, because, like, I've seen him in Shaun of the Dead. Even Shaun of the Dead, playing more of a kind of like a dry character. Like, it's still it's still good Simon Pegg. And then you go back and you look at like some of the other roles he's done, even at the end of the world. He's over the top, but it's fun. But going back to the story, the Doctor and Rose come out before Adam does. They're preparing for this, and I always thought it was interesting because we know what the Doctor's relationship with Rose is at the end of their story, but at this point, like he's being her wingman, and like he's telling her what to say to sound smart about where they're at, which I thought was funny. And then she's kind of like doing the whole thing, like figuring out.
Going from that, and then near the end, he says, "This is your boyfriend," and she goes, "Not anymore." I said, "Wow, that was fast."
Right. That was quick. Like it was like after the fainting, it was over with. But yeah, so I kind of wondered, like, okay, so first of all, let's just point out, here's Space Station 5, I think is what it was called. And we'll see this again. We'll see this at the end of Christopher Eccleston's run as the Doctor, because it's where the last event for him happens before the regeneration. But I loved how basic like this. I mean, you see them like going through, they're having a meal, and she's like, here's a slushy like drink. He's like, what does it taste like? She's like, beef. And he's just like completely out of his element. This is a guy who wanted to be around aliens. He wanted to understand the technology, and he's in the future on a space station with a civilization that has advanced, thousands of years. Mind you, they're behind 91 years, but this guy is like completely like opposed to anything different until he realized he can make a buck. Like,
yeah, like Marty McFly with the sports almanac kind of vibes.
Yeah. Oh man.
But
I realize how many like Doctor Who like hits on so many different like tropes of like time travel. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, watching this series as a whole, I realized just how many ideas George Lucas probably lifted from Doctor Who because Doctor Who came first.
True. So we've got this station. It's a news station. And the way they're getting this knowledge is they have holes in their heads that are getting full streams, and then they're connected to the rest of them. Like, yeah, that's not shady at all. And I love how like like when you look at Adam, he's like, oh, this is advanced, and Doctor Who's like, this is all wrong. It's all wrong.
Did you? Am I the only one that got the vibe when that first happened of the Riddler and Batman Forever when he had that thing on his head?
Yeah.
And all the knowledge came in? It's the same thing.
It is the exact same thing. Wow, Russell T. Davies, you have some answering to do. Like, seriously. I thought that, and then I like tucked it in the back of my head, and then now realizing, because like that was 95 was Batman Forever. So we're talking about 10 years later, they're doing, oh man, that's messed up. Speaking of Simon Pegg earlier, like, what did they do to him? Like the makeup and the, like, come on. Like,
yeah, I thought they were trying to like match the whole ice aesthetic with his look, but that was a strange look.
Yeah. It's like Mr. Freeze almost a little bit. Because you had all these frozen people around him. Like, again, like if you haven't watched the episode, go back and watch the episode. But basically, when you got promoted, you were killed, and you ended up, being a puppet where the chips, which makes me wonder, why were the people important in the first place if they could just have the chips that followed after stuff? Like, wouldn't robots or some type of automaton have been like easier to deal with than having to deal with a whole bunch of corpses? Like, or did the guy just like having someone to talk to? Like,
I don't know. He said he represented a bunch of banks, and maybe there was currency in people. I don't know.
Oh, and then this scene, let me get to it. Where he's questioning the Doctor. Okay. And he's like talking about truth and lies. Like, the dude's entire game is disinformation for the whole reason of supplanting the human race because of his boss. Like it's like somebody who's like constantly lying, just trying to tell people how to act or live. But yeah, oh man, it was a tough episode to get through. So let's just delve through this real quick and we can be done with it so we can get on to the next episode, because it does get better. I will be honest with you. I feel like some of these episodes were pretty self-contained at the beginning. But I do like Father's Day a whole lot better than I've liked like World War III, Aliens of London, and this.
The next few is exactly where I was like mad at Rose, because she has this life lesson in the next episode, and then the next episode after immediately seems to forget that. It's like,
well, she's 19 years old.
That's true.
Thinking back on like how I was at 19, I was in one ear and out the other on a regular basis. So it's like you get in trouble for something, you learn your lesson, and then you do the exact same thing, going, "Oh, I thought I'd get different results." like that's what youth is pretty much in my mind, or at least mine was. It was just insanity. So of course, so let's go back. We have this image. This I think is where Adam gets the first thought in his mind, no pun intended, to act sick, go back and see if he can try to pirate some type of future tech that he can like then call his mom and leave on her voicemail, the plans for whatever it is that he could get rich and do whatever, which was absolutely ridiculous. But when he went down to the nursing bay, to the nursing floor, and that whole engagement, I like this nurse. I really liked this nurse because she was completely dry and she was looking at him like he was stupid. And she's like, "Yeah, you don't have the interface. We need to give you the interface. You can either get the chip or you get this." He's like, "Well, I don't think I can afford it." And she looks at what he's got. And of course, the doctor always gives way too much money. And that's like that's a common trend with the doctor. Because when you get to when we first meet Donna Noble, when she's the bride, he messes up an ATM. It takes like a whole wad of cash out. He's like, "Is this enough?" Like, it's just how he no. And then Matt Smith does it when with the episode where he's with what's this, James Corden, and like he just hands like a paper bag full of money and just like is like, "Is this good enough for the rent?" Like, people don't question. Like, I wouldn't question if you give me a bag of cash.
Yeah, like the doctor and casual theft is just hand in hand.
Because it's money. What does it matter to him? Like, it's so funny because like I think of time travel. I think of like Doc Brown. Where did Doc Brown get his money that he had for whatever era he was in? Did he intentionally go there and work for it, or did he ended up stealing it, or whatever? Like, there are questions that should be had, but the doctor doesn't care about that. He has period clothing, for everyone but himself. But when it comes down to like the money, like he'll just get it wherever he needs to. Which brings a question, because I was just watching the Van Gogh episode, and like they go and they buy a bottle of wine for Van Gogh because he gets kicked out of the cafe, and I'm sitting there going, where did they get that money from? Like, because they're in France, I mean, they're in Paris, and where are they getting money for that? So yeah, it was a little bit wild. But yeah, so he gets I couldn't find a picture of it. So he gets the implant in his head. Of course, you have to snap in order to get, to open it. Of course, I like the illustrations. Like, some people have it open by whistling. One guy has it by singing "Oh Danny Boy." It's like, okay. And of course, this kid seems to get sick a lot, and so they gave him nano termites in his esophagus to be able to turn the vomit into ice cubes.
That was the weirdest feature. Like, of all the things to pick, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I was just kind of like, I think they're just like doing it over the top. I don't know if it was like trying to show us that he had an insane amount of money that they were willing to just throw that in there, or what. But it really does mess this kid's life up, because at that point, like, he's gonna have this for life. And like, I keep thinking, like, he can't go to poetry night. There are a lot of jazz bars he's not gonna be able to go into. It's like it's all of these things he can't do because of like a simple snap. And I love the way they ended it with his mom, and she's just like, well, 6 months have gone by in a snap, and
He he would have to leave before Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, that's for sure.
it's so stupid to think about that. But it's like, okay, so we hate Adam. That's just how it is. He's the only companion that I know of. Maybe you've gone back and you've seen stuff that I think has ever been that self-serving and really just like he's never really expelled someone as a companion that I've seen through the New Who. But this guy, and this I always wondered if this guy would ever come back. We would see him somewhere down the road.
I think that's record time for a companion to be let off, just kind of kicked off the TARDIS versus the companion that was there for like a Christmas special and then died at the end. Like this might be the quickest
right.
living.
Yeah, because I think of like, what was it, the Titanic episode? I would have loved that waitress to have been a companion. I think they really set us up and did us dirty. This guy, I feel like they were really making us not like him at the beginning because it was very much he was afraid of leaving, or he was afraid of staying because they were afraid that he was going to memory wipe them. He was going to be found on the side of the road and all this stuff. You could tell he had pride in what he was doing in that Utah bunker, but at the same time, like, I don't know what Rose saw in him, I'll be honest, other than he was the only other Brit, and maybe he had a pretty face. I doubt that, but
yeah, I mean, I'm sure like maybe he's mentioned later on somewhere, and I'm sure if Johnny or Niko were here, they could just tell me if he was, because I don't remember. But yeah, it was good for him to just be in that one episode and be gone.
Yeah, I almost wonder if like they were watching to see how people were going to respond to him. I know they have these episodes done ahead of time, but it's like, I don't know. Did not like him at all. I think they made that. I think they did it on purpose to let us know that they had higher standards. But again, Rose made mistakes. So we find that one of the people that was in this scene, in fact, she's the one in the right corner, closest to the screen, I guess you could say, was actually a freedom fighter. Because there were people that knew that there was disinformation going on through Satellite 5. And her whole purpose was to try to figure out what was going on, to figure out who was in charge. And of course, when we see her next, she has already been, zombified, mummified. But I thought was really interesting. So there is a part, and we're just going to go through it. I'm going to bookmark here real quick, and then we're going to get to it. So we know that once they see that, then, the Doctor and Rose are captured. And we find that weird orifice looking thing on the ceiling is literally what is in charge of Satellite 5, which I was kind of surprised that Simon Pegg's character could understand it, but the Doctor didn't seem to. Especially since it was speaking some type of language. We never really get an idea of what this thing is, because literally the Doctor just calls it that thing. He says that thing is in charge of Satellite 5, and he's like, well, that thing is my boss. And of course we have, Rose and the Doctor that are trapped and everything else. But what was I gonna? Oh, so at the end, this character, the one that we had talked about, the freedom fighter, when the one girl goes in and changes the heating, because all of a sudden we find out that the reason why it's colder upstairs and it's hotter downstairs, because if the thing overheats, it explodes. I have that problem all the time. And so it's about to explode, and Simon Pegg's character wants to run away, and the girl grabs his leg. Now I wondered, was that the girl or was that the creature controlling the girl? Because up until this point, we have not seen these things act in anything other than vocal commands. Because Simon Pegg's character has been telling them what to do. Was there a level of control, or was that her getting control back because the thing was losing its whatever. But
I
then the thing is, she's dead, right?
like she was near death or zombified or something. I would like to think that it was her because they did this whole intro of like, yeah, she's a freedom fighter. They showed her firing an automatic, like like a badass, and then she gets duped and shoots like a little ray gun at the thing instead of maybe doing something like dodging. Uh, so like that moment, I would like to think it was actually her in control.
Mm-hmm. I'll say that too. I mean, it's like we said she was dead earlier, but is it dead, or is it mostly dead? Are we pulling the Princess Bride type thing? So yeah, we'll just say
There's red shirts in Doctor Who all the time, so it's not like a new thing, but it's just like, man, they make you like a character so quickly just for them to die.
And you notice that
All
most of the time, they're soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're a soldier or if you carry a gun in Doctor Who, they're very specific about what happens to you, with the exception of like, I would say, right at the end of Rose and the 10th Doctor's run, with the whole the Void. You've got Mickey and his freedom fighters basically from that other dimension that are using like the guns that can actually kill Daleks and Cybermen. So I'll give them, they were okay. And it's funny because like the Doctor seems to be sometimes okay with guns and sometimes not, and we'll see how that works later. But yeah, I'm trying to think of good things to say about this episode. Yeah, it ended. So the episode ends. The creature is killed. The Doctor basically leaves everyone to kind of pick up the mess, which is your Doctor Who. And then we go back to Adam's house, and I love how he like grabs him. He's like, I thought you were going to throw me out into space or anything like that. He's like, you obviously don't know the Doctor. But we find him take it back home. He destroys the voice with the answering machine, and we've got Doctor, the Doctor kind of looking at him like, you'll never come back, you're done. And he's like, but I want to go with you. I want to, Rose, I want to go with you. And I love how the Doctor was like snapping and making it open and close. And he's like, stop it. And then Rose
Rose did
it. I would have done it. I wouldn't have resisted. But yeah, he gets left home with his mom. His mom, did you leave the back door open? Because she hears the TARDIS, and then she, gets a nice little shock, and that's the end of Adam.
Yeah,
as far as I'm concerned.
That implant is useless in that time period too. Like there's nothing to interface.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing, is like his brain can be exposed at any time. Like there's gotta be some maintenance that would need to be done on those things. Like, I don't know.
Rust.
Right? It's like when he touches it, it's like I feel like the way it moved and the way it sounded, like those are aluminum like doors. Like that's like tin. It's like really thin. Like somebody hits him in the head, he's in trouble. Like
even saying yes to that in the first place, when I'm like, oh, okay, say if I wanted to get all the information, but that was the only way to do it. No, I'm good not knowing.
What I find also extremely, and I guess this is more of the thought of the characters. He is riding in a TARDIS, going through space and time. You have the opportunity to see and experience things that no one else will, but you're going to focus on a get-rich-quick scheme. Come on.
In a place you've never been and are unfamiliar with entirely.
Exactly. You're going to do major surgery on your head, that you don't know has long runs. He pulled the, it was funny because I was watching this. I was thinking about Spider-Man Homecoming. No, it was Infinity War. So we have him almost lose the key to the TARDIS. He's divulged all the information because he's synced with the machinery, and then all of a sudden, like when he goes to say, he's like, technically it's your fault. You know, like he did the whole Peter Parker thing. Was like, the suit's really intuitive because so it's kind of your fault that I'm here. You
The
know,
gaslighting is nuts.
oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, there was nothing redeeming about Adam at all. Like, nope, I'm good.
This was the takeaway from the episode. We just hate Adam.
Exactly. It's one of those things where I wonder if he ever goes to conventions. I'm probably sure he doesn't because he's one of those most forgettable, like punchable face characters. And you wonder, it's like yesterday we were talking about Daredevil Born Again, and there's that sleazy like promotions guy that's working with Kingpin. And I just said as soon as I saw his face, I knew I didn't like him. I feel really bad because there's an actor that's probably a really cool guy or maybe decent, or if he's a jerk in real life, then I feel justified in feeling how I feel. But the like you instantly just dislike the guy. And I'll be honest with you, Christopher Eccleston was one of those guys that I instantly disliked because all I knew him was Destro and from Gone in 60 Seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me some time to like him again. And you have characters that have those type of like acting careers where they'll always be known as the bad guy.
I think in real life, Christopher Eccleston is more like the guy in Gone in 60 Seconds, at least his demeanor, than the Doctor. But, just based off the interview, because he just hates his experience, which is, from hearing him, it's understandable, and also understandable that he just wants to do the audiobooks because he likes the money it comes. Like, you'd be crazy to say no to that. But it would be cool if he ever wanted to go to a convention. Like, there'd be a long line of people that wanted to see him.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I'd want to see Christopher Eccleston. I don't want to see the guy who played Adam.
No, not at all. And I'm sure that guy might even say yes if people asked him to go to a convention, because I've seen people at conventions that I'm surprised are there. It's like, oh, you had a tiny part, but you're here, and people are in line for you. Okay.
Yeah. I almost feel like sometimes when you're a villain, you have to play something that you can be likable in, just to kind of get because I mean, let's think of it this way. Hugo Weaving, he was Agent Smith, and like a hateable character, but then immediately he plays Elrond, and you're like, oh, I like the guy, like he's pretty cool, and then he turns around and he plays Red Skull, and you're like, oh, I hate the guy, but he's a great actor. Like you get used to him after a while, and you have other people that you see go back and forth from being villains. It's like what's his name? I forget his name right now. I'm not looking things up. I feel bad but have you seen the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie?
I haven't actually. That's one.
Really? Okay. Now I have to look up the guy's name. Hold on. Okay. So, Sherlock Holmes, was like the only thing I think that, Robert Downey Jr. was able to successfully do, outside of Iron Man, that he could really kind of break that, because I thought it was a good series. Mind you, I think okay, Mark Strong, so he plays Lord Blackwood in Sherlock Holmes, and I've only ever seen him be that villain for a good long time. But then, have you seen Kingsman?
No, I haven't seen Kingsman.
Oh my! Get off and go watch the movies. No, so then Mark Strong also plays Merlin, who is basically the tech guy for the Kingsman Secret Service. And by the second movie, you absolutely love the guy. Like he's the funniest, like neatest guy, even though he's very straight laced. And it's like sometimes I think when those characters are able to break those tropes of being a villain, it's really good. But your homework is now to go and watch Kingsman. You've got to go do that.
I know I've seen Mark Strong in other stuff, but he was in Dune Prophecy recently.
Yes.
And he was in The Penguin. What did he play in The Penguin? Yeah.
What? See, this is the rabbit holes we're going to go to when we're doing a bad episode. Who's in The Penguin? Carmine Falcone.
Oh, right. Okay.
See, I'm going to admit I haven't watched Penguin. I think you froze or I froze or something happened. So, yeah. So, did you freeze or did I freeze?
I think you did. It took a second and then came back. I don't know.
Okay.
I just looked at my internet just in case.
Yeah. So I did not watch The Penguin. So, that's
Oh,
on me.
that was a fantastic series.
I know. I'll get to it eventually. I just, yeah. No. He also played the villain in Shazam, which is another reason why you can dislike him, because he was in Shazam at all.
See, now that you say Carmine Falcone, like, because he had hair and glasses and stuff, like all this stuff on his head, that that signature bald head of his, like I didn't see it, but now that I'm hearing the voice, like, oh yeah, that was that guy.
Yeah, there's something about him being in The Kingsman, on a like some type of tropical like location as a Scottish like tech guy for a British Secret Service like clandestine group singing West Virginia. It was something I didn't realize I needed. So yeah. Go watch it. You'll enjoy it. But yeah, I don't think we really can say. So next episode is Father's Day, where we learn that where Rose can be completely oblivious to people learning lessons about not meddling with things and what that can do. To the point of where the doctor was going to leave her. I was watching this last night because I watched Long Game and I had to kind of like clean my palate. So I watched Father's Day, and I'm watching, and like the dude was gonna leave her. Like he wasn't coming back. Like he was, if it wasn't for the fact that the TARDIS like turned into what everybody has in their basement when they built their own TARDIS, like just a prop, he would have. I don't know if he would have come back for her. Like he was fed up with her, especially when I think he was upset that she didn't learn a lesson like the rest of us were. So, yeah. Any last thoughts?
No, not exactly. No, I don't really have anything else. Just I hate Adam.
Yeah. Agreed. We'll make a shirt that's just like Adam Haters Club or something. Like, dude, that'd be a really funny shirt. Like, yeah, let me see what I can do. Just hate Adam. Yeah, so I'm wondering if why Johnny isn't on is because of daylight savings.
You know what? Probably because
what's gonna happen is this episode's gonna end and it's gonna be 3:00 for us, and he's gonna be like, "Hey, you guys ready?" And I'm like, "Oh no, we're done." I hate daylight savings.
Yeah, especially the spring forward. I'm not a fan. I actually
fall back, not so bad. Yeah,
yeah, you gain an hour. That's fantastic, but then losing an hour. I woke up at noon after going to bed at 3 a.m. because I lost track of time because of the time changed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I will say this. We were talking about this last week, and then we'll end it. That there are 15th Doctor stories in comics that that continue on from, I guess, episode from season 1. And so I found this at a used bookstore the other day, and I didn't even realize what I had until after we talked about it. And this is, unfortunately, this is issue 3. But from Titan Comics, there is a Doctor Who tie-in for the 15th Doctor, and you can see him and Ruby Sunday are running from the Cybermen. So we had literally talked about this the other day, and I didn't realize I had it on me. So yeah, I'm gonna go read that now. Screw Adam. Oh man. All right, well, with that said, I guess we should wrap that up, because if we go any further, we're just gonna complain about Adam more. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, I think I'm good. Anything else you want to say?
Nope.
Okay. Well, with that said, this has been the shortest, if not the only short episode of Tardis Talk that we'll ever have, especially if it's just me and David. So yeah, we hope that you guys enjoyed. Maybe not necessarily enjoyed the long game, but that's okay. Because there's gonna be something better. We're gonna get to Father's Day, and when we do get to Satellite 5 again, it will be a lot more interesting, especially because Daleks are involved. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back next week, 2:00. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard, or Hollywood time, like Johnny likes to say, if he's not, sleeping because of daylight savings. And hopefully Niko will be back and hydrated, and ready from whatever he's been doing. But I hope he's had fun at BlurredCon. I will say this: if you're listening to this after the fact, we don't know your name specifically, but Niko said that while he was at BlurredCon, someone stopped him and said that he's been enjoying this podcast, that they've really enjoyed it, and that they are doing a rewatch of Doctor Who with us, which is fantastic. And so if you are doing that with us and you'd like to, leave comments, even let's say if you're not on while we're live and you'd like to put comments in the videos, or even message us at itsfanbox@gmail.com. We'd love to be able to at least mention you and give you a shout out for being a listener and being a part of it, because it's just fun to go through Doctor Who. But with that said, check out itsfanbox.com. You'll see this video and other stuff posted, as well as our new podcast for Daredevil Born Again. And then on top of that, you can go to youtube.com/itsfanbox to see all of our videos, including a really cool interview that Michael and I just did with Melissa LaMartina, which is the director and the wife of the writer of For Sale by Exorcist, which is out in 2 days. Which is going to be a lot of fun. It's a really funny movie. There is one part where she is trying to help a family who is they're about to divorce because the wife is convinced he's cheating. This is basically how the story goes. She's convinced he's cheating, and she comes in and he swears that there's like a ghost or something, and there's like lipstick on the mirror and everything else, and it's only ever affecting him. And you basically find out there's a succubus in the house and it's attacking the guy. And the only way that the wife can help during the exorcism is to punch her husband repeatedly in the crotch. That's all I have to tell you to let you know that the movie is so much fun. And for being a dread film, this being like one of their only like horror comedy films, it's worth it. You'll sit there because it's a mockumentary. It's basically like they're following this real estate agent around who happens to also be an exorcist, and she specializes in haunted homes. And it's absolutely bonkers and off the wall and everything. I absolutely love the film. So be sure to check that out. But again, I'm Tony, and David, where can we find you?
Xanatos1138 on all socials.
All right. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to see if we can do this right this time. We're going to sign out. So